Chapter 464 to 465. Under the guidance of Sandaime Kazekage, Kuroto became more and more focused on inducing magnetic force within the particles of different types of substances lying before him. The state of concentration reached such a degree that aside from himself and his objective at hand, nothing around him caught his attention. Undoubtedly, being able to induce constant and regulated magnetism in these substances is a very difficult task. After all, the polarity and magnetic movement of each atom differ. So rearranging the polarity of each atom in a particular direction to induce the maximum static electricity and maximum magnetic force is not an easy task and requires extreme control over chakra. Because even if magnetism is induced, it won't be permanent and will slowly diminish as energy is lost. Therefore, a need for constant chakra supply and control arises, and maintaining a permanent chakra control is not an easy task. This is different from general ninjutsu because once a particular volume of chakra is dedicated while using a particular ninjutsu, there is no further need to direct chakra into it. There is just a need to control it telekinetically, but this is different from magnet release, as the user has to constantly keep the magnetic field induced, else the magnetism will be lost. And this process is not only extremely hard, but also extremely chakra consuming, thus tiring. Precisely why, even though Sunagakure has figured out the process of learning and training magnet release, very few are able to actually use it and have truly mastered it. In Kuroto's memory, at this point in time, only the boy with the name Itsuki, the adopted son of Godame Kazekage Pakura, is able to use magnet release, and he too has awakened it naturally. Of course, awakening magnet release naturally is not really impossible. Gaara awakened magnet release naturally. Gaara's ability to manipulate sand is, of course, inherited from his mother, but not magnet release. Maybe magnet release was the result of being the Jinchuriki of a chibi, but there is also a second possibility. Maybe he inherited magnet release from his father. Anyway, as Kuroto continued on the process of magnetizing the particles in deep concentration, a few iron sand particles started to get affected by the magnetic force, and slowly but steadily, more and more of them, under the effects of magnetism, started to rise into the air. Kuroto was so immersed in training that he did not even realize how much time had passed, and it wasn't until he felt a sense of hunger deep that Kuroto's mind came out of the training, and his control was released. Ding 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 ding. As soon as he withdrew from his concentrated state, the floating iron sand in front of him scattered on the ground, causing the harsh sound to resound in the whole training room. When the harsh sound reached his ears, Kuroto was immediately awake and opened his eyes abruptly with a shocked look, and after realizing the cause of the sound, he can't help but mutter in wonder. No way, did I succeed in the first try? What? Muttered Kuroto in a shocked tone, as he looked at the traces of iron sand still floating in the air. Only now did the realization dawn on him that he had not only succeeded in controlling iron sand, but was doing it for quite a lot of time. Upon confirming from the Sandaime Kazekage puppet beside him, Kuroto learned that he has been continuously controlling the iron sand for the past 8 hours without even realizing it. Strange, I have been standing in one position for the past 8 hours without even realizing it. No wonder I felt so hungry. Obviously, I haven't eaten or drank anything for the past 24 hours. With that said, Kuroto immediately got up, went to the kitchen section of the Anchor Vantion, and found himself something to eat, which also included milk, as calcium is extremely important for Shikatsumiyaku. And while filling his stomach, Kuroto also thought about a lot of things, in particular related to magnet release. On the first attempt, a weak magnetic field was induced by him. Of all the metallic sand scattered in the room, the iron sand, in particular, reacted the most. Other types of sand also reacted, but iron sand was most affected, which means that this Clone-S chakra synchronizes with the paramagnetic type substances more. Whether this is a good thing or not is yet to be determined, but Kuroto is without a doubt happy. After all, he managed to succeed in the first attempt, and this is by no means a small accomplishment. Aside from Kuroto's own understanding, the reason for success is perhaps also related to the Clone-S natural affinity towards all the 7 chakra natures. Additionally, there is also another reason for his success. The iron sand that Kuroto used was borrowed from Sandaime Kazekage puppet, who occasionally uses this iron sand while using magnet release. And because of repeatedly being magnetized, the iron sand used by him is quite sensitive to the magnet release chakra. So even if there is small magnetic induction, it is more susceptible to react. All these factors, when taken into account at the same time, become the reason why Kuroto managed to succeed in his first attempt. Well, now that I have succeeded and got the hang of it, I must get used to manipulating iron sand and improve my degree and range of control over it. Additionally, I do have a few other jutsu that I want to use for this clone. Let's see to what extent, and to what variant will I be able to develop this clone. Muttered Kuroto as he finished his meal, then ventured towards the training site. 2 weeks later, Kuroto, who was controlling the wind nature clone, stood calmly in the training field. Opposite him stood Sandaime Kazekage puppet at a distance of 20 m. Sandaime Kazekage had iron sand floating on his back, while Kuroto was wearing a hooded cloak made of iron sand, sort of like the one Shinki uses in Boruto. The two were facing each other. Additionally, iron sand particles were also floating in the entire room. Some were repelling each other, and some were attracting each other. Sometimes, they would fly in Kuroto's direction, while other times, they would move towards the puppet's direction. The different magnetism shown by iron sand particles indicates the 2 different magnetic fields in the room, trying to overpower each other. This alone indicates that although the two are standing still without making any move, the battle between the two is going on. It appears that I will be the one to make the first move. After a while of trying, Kuroto realized that in the face of experienced Sandaime Kazekage, Kuroto is the one slowly losing. So he changed his tactics and chose to make the first move. Magnet release, Iron Sand, Black Iron Wings. His cloak unfolded and took the shape of Iron Sand wings. Instantly, Kuroto rose into the air and fired countless Iron Sand feathers towards Sandaime Kazekage puppet. Magnet release, Iron Sand Drizzle. Sandaime Kazekage printed the hand seals and instantly controlled the iron sand around him, forming hundreds of iron sand bullets. The Iron Sand Wings and Iron Sand Drizzle were fired toward the enemy at the same time and countered each other. Kuroto did not waste this opportunity. Instantly, a large part of iron sand covering him appeared out of the cloak and took the form of several small iron balls with a sharp end. Then, under Kuroto's further control, these iron balls with a sharp end started to revolve over his head at an extremely high speed, and this speed continued to increase faster and faster and faster, gradually forming a chakram of visible current around it. Magnet release, Electromagnetic Chakram. Instantly, under Kuroto's control, the revolving chakram rushed towards Sandaime Kazekage. That's dangerous. Can't let it hit me. Upon realizing how dangerous this attack is, Sandaime Kazekage dare not show any carelessness and instantly controlled almost all the iron sand he had access to create a sand shield in order to block the incoming chakram. However, contrary to what he had expected, when the chakram met the iron sand shield, there was no sound of impact, nor was there any struggle for dominance. Because of the current produced by the electromagnetic induction, due to the acceleration of particles forming the chakram, the electromagnetic field of the iron sand shield created by Sandaime Kazekage collapsed. Scatter, scatter, scatter. The very next instant, iron sand shield collapsed, the iron sand scattered, and the spinning chakram continued towards the Kazekage puppet. Heh! Kuroto smirked and immediately stopped the chakram, just when it was an instant away from cutting the Kazekage puppet into two halves. He was satisfied with the result, and there is no need to destroy the puppet. The purpose of using this attack was to test whether this attack could exploit the weakness of magnet release. That's the weakness of magnet release. In the face of lightning release, the electromagnetic field keeping the hold of the magnetic force collapses, and as a result, the metallic sand scatters. Kuroto of course knows that this weakness of magnet release can also be exploited by others against him. Therefore, he worked on methods to negate that effect. Induction of current, by the use of the high-speed rotation of charged iron sand particles, is the best way to counter it. As long Kuroto continues to supply chakra, the acceleration of charged iron sand particles will not stop. As a result, it will continue to produce currents through electromagnetic induction, which will negate lightning release attacks to a certain extent. After spending more than 2 months out of the village, Kuroto returned back to the village. In the past 2 months, Kuroto learned Senin mode, created and trained Wind Nature Clone to some extent, trained both Gaara and Karen, and also did a few other things. And after he was done, Kuroto returned back. Of course, before returning, Kuroto did not forget to check up on the status of the 2 new clones he has set up in the incubation capsules 2 weeks ago. These 2 new clones are made up of Sandaime Kazekage's cells. As per Kuroto's initial plans, the puppet body of Sandaime Kazekage is to be discarded and an all-new enhanced body is to take that place so that the strength of Amatsukami can be increased. Since the creation of these 2 clones had nothing to do with the fusion of cells or anything tedious, so the initial process was very easy, and after the cloning bud was created, the clone was set up in the incubation capsules to be grown. As per Kuroto's estimation, this clone will be ready for Sandaime Kazekage to take over in about 2 to 3 more weeks. The reason for such a long time is to maintain a high quality of the clone. After completing most of the things that Kuroto had to do at Anchor Vantion, Kuroto returned back to the village. After returning, the first thing he did was to meet up with his shadow clone that has been acting as his replacement in the village for the past 2 months. As for people wondering why the clone did not dispel itself or disappear, even after the real Kuroto used Tenseigan soul, descend to repeatedly transfer his soul from one body to another. For this, Kuroto will have to be grateful to Toyotama Haim, Ryumyaku. She made sure to keep a constant supply of chakra to the clone to ensure that the clone does not disappear. In fact, she also made sure to continuously heal it if injured, to again ensure that it does not disappear into a poof, as that would have been very problematic and very difficult to explain for Kuroto. And now that Kuroto returned to the village, he dispelled the shadow clone, who has been performing the Umbu missions as the captain of Team Ro. The moment the shadow clone disappeared, 2 months' worth of memories instantly flooded Kuroto's mind, causing him to feel a bit overwhelmed as he realized just how many things have happened in the past 2 months. After recovering from the migraine caused by the sudden influx of memories, Kuroto slowly started to sort out the memories one by one to get a general idea of everything that the shadow clone went through. In the past 2 months, after Konoha's alliance with the surrounding nations was concluded, everything on the surface became extraordinarily calm and peaceful, giving great relief to the villagers exposed to the light. But those working in the shadows, i.e., the Umbu in specific, were more than clear about the wind and waves that have started to blow, and clearly showing signs of a storm that is soon about to hit this shinobi world. Kuroto was also surprised upon learning how busy his shadow clone was these days. Basically, the shadow clone had no free time. In his absence, the shadow clone continued performing missions assigned to him by Sandaime-sama, some with the Team Row, some with only one other member, and a few even solo missions that were very secretive. Each mission was classified as Rank S, and few even surpassed Rank S, for which Team Row would team up with another Umbu teams to ensure that the mission is completed without a hitch. Kuroto doesn't understand why exactly, but for some reason the 4, not actually 3 members of Team Row, except for Itachi, suddenly became adamant in training to get stronger. And since Kuroto is their captain who is much stronger than all the 4 combined, so obviously they started pestering him to train them. Therefore, Kuroto's shadow clone had no choice but to also make some time in his schedule in order to train Kurenai, Hate, and Yugao. And since the 3 of them were training, so Itachi, being a member of Team Row, also trained. Thus, Kuroto's shadow clone was no different from Kuroto, too busy to be able to relax. Another thing that surprised Kuroto was the information he concluded, based on all the missions his shadow clone completed. While sitting cross-legged in his room, Kuroto muttered, "What is Sandaime-sama's source of information? All the signs indicate that Sandaime-sama has been planning something in secret. It stands to reason that Akatsuki has not made any move for so long, so the village's vigilance should gradually relax. However, not only the vigilance and security wasn't relaxed, but in fact, it was gradually strengthened. This unreasonable behavior, coupled with all sorts of infiltration and assassination tasks that Team Row has been performing, undoubtedly shows that Sandaime-sama is very sure about something. And more than likely that something is related to Akatsuki's revenge on Konoha that should be getting closer and closer. But why is Sandaime-sama so sure? Kuroto can't help but doubt this. All the knowledgeable people understand that Akatsuki would undoubtedly seek revenge on Konoha, but given the fact that so many months have passed and yet there was no sign, so obviously many thoughts have started to emerge. One of them is about the possibility of Nagato's death. Yet, Sandaime-sama dare not relax the vigilance. Why exactly? Is he aware of something that I am not? But if that's the case, what exactly and how exactly? Muttered Kuroto as the frown on his face deepened. Since the summit war at Amigakure, Kuroto has completely lost contact with Uchiha Shinichi, and as time passed by, Kuroto has become more and more worried about Shinichi's safety. There are only 2 possibilities. Either Shinichi's identity has been exposed, and he has already been killed by the Akatsuki organization, or Shinichi has been put under 24-hour surveillance, so he is unable to deliver any message. Of course, Kuroto hopes that it is the latter option, not because he is worried about Shinichi's life, but because he is worried about the intelligence that Shinichi has. Shinichi has also seen Kuroto's Tenseigan chakra mode, so he knows the true identity of Yama. If his identity as a spy is exposed, then it's very likely that all his memories have been extracted by Nagato, which would mean that Nagato also knows about Kuroto, and this is something Kuroto does not want. Therefore, Kuroto hopes that it is the latter, and if it is the latter, then that would mean Akatsuki has changed its policies. They no longer allow loose management of the members of the organization, and now strictly monitor all their movements. And since there has been no sighting of any member of the Akatsuki, other than the time Obito sneaked inside Konoha in order to take back his left eye, so it can only mean one thing: all of them have gathered in one place. Are they really planning on something big? This strange calmness in the shinobi world has made Kuroto think of this possibility. Otherwise, why would all the members of Akatsuki gather in one place? The members of Akatsuki are nuke-nin from multiple villages. They have to not only guard against various enemies, they have to be cautious against each other too. But given the fact that all of them are more than likely to have gathered in one place, so it can only mean that the Akatsuki organization is planning something big. After reaching this conclusion, Kuroto left his house and walked in the direction of the Uchiha clan. On his way, Kuroto thought about many things, and after considering these various things, there was only one conclusion in his mind. Although I am not sure how he is doing it, Sandaime-sama must know something about Akatsuki's latest plan. Since the failure of the joint raid at Amigakure, Sandaime has become more and more secretive. Even the well-informed and trusted Umbu members loyal to him are not aware of most of the things, and no one is able to figure out what exactly he is doing. Even Kuroto is unable to. If it wasn't for the fact that Kuroto was a member of Umbu Team 11, and had a close friendship with Kakashi, else he wouldn't have gotten any information about the attack on Kakashi. At the same time, if not for the fact that Pakura and Yagura are his subordinates, Kuroto wouldn't have gotten any wind about the upcoming Gakage summit that is going to be held in secrecy in Konoha. Sandaime suppressed the news of the attack on Kakashi, renounced Shimura Danzo's control over Root Subunit, then coupled with all these assassination missions Team Row is performing to stabilize peace in the Land of Fire. All signs indicate that Sandaime-sama is trying to show, or maybe confuse others, and making them think that Konoha is safe. At the same time, we secretly contacted the Kage of the other 4 great shinobi villages to hold a secret Gakage summit in Konoha, meaning he wants the other 4 Kages to be in Konoha, covering signs of all enemies' activities in the village and the country, while summoning the other 4 Kages in the village. It is as if Sandaime-sama knows when and what is going to happen in the village, and deliberately summoned the 4 Kage to help Konoha, muttered Kuroto in a shocked tone, and even he was taken aback by this absurd guess of his. But if this absurd guess of his is correct, then Sandaime is not only secretly weaving a trap against Akatsuki organization, but is also using the other 4 Kage in this trap. He may have gotten old and weak with time, but there is no change in his savvy character. In the name of Gakage Summit, he intends to use the other 4 Kage to protect Konoha, muttered Kuroto in an admirable tone. Then he no longer cared about it, and proceeded towards the Uchiha clan. Sooner or later, his questions will be answered anyway, and Pakura and Yugura will give him information. It didn't take long for Kuroto to come to arrive at the back forest of the Uchiha clan, and he saw Shursui and Itachi training. Noticing Kuroto's arrival, the two Uchiha teenagers who were busy in high-intensity combat stopped tacitly and quickly greeted him. Kuroto returned the greeting, then asked Shursui, "How is your physical condition, Shursui?" Shursui said with a genuine smile, "My body has completely adapted. There is an additional increase in my physical strength, and my chakra volume has almost quadrupled since the day of transplantation." "That's good." Kuroto nodded. He wasn't much surprised as these were expected results. After the recovery and training of more than 2 months, it is natural that Shursui's body adapts to the Hashirama cells. In fact, aside from his physical strength and chakra reserves, his visual prowess has also increased quite a lot. As for the 4 times increase in his chakra, Kuroto feels that Shursui's chakra should increase more as days pass by. After all, Hashirama cells are no joke. And given the fact that currently, Shursui is not even an adult, so his chakra reserves are bound to grow. After understanding this, Kuroto asked Shursui again, "And have you noticed any negative effects?" Shursui thought a little, then shook his head. "None so far." "All right, that's good. And are there any white face marks on your body?" Kuroto asked again. This was very important. If Hashirama's face were to appear on Shursui's body, then it could cause problems. Shursui looked at Kuroto with a weird expression and asked doubtfully, "No, was a face supposed to appear on my body?" Receiving Shursui's reply, Kuroto had a thoughtful look on his face, then said, "If it hasn't appeared, then that's good. In any case, we can replace those eyes." Shursui nodded quickly. "All right." In order to make sure that Hashirama cells do not take over Shursui's body during the adaptation period, Kuroto did not replace the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan with Shursui's Manjikyu Sharingan. And now that his body has perfectly adapted, there is no need for Shursui to not have his eyes back. The operation site is still the secret laboratory in the Forest of Death, because it was a simple eye replacement operation, so it only took a minute for Kuroto to skillfully remove the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan out of Shursui's eye sockets, and then he replaced them with Shursui's original eyes. After completing the eye replacement, "How do you feel?" asked Kuroto while observing Shursui's vital signs. After a long silence, Shursui removed his hands from his eyes and said, "I feel the same as I did earlier." Kuroto nodded, then asked, "And what about your vision?" "I am not sure yet. The eye has just been replaced. Maybe it will take some time when my vision is restored," answered Shursui with a doubtful tone. Kuroto nodded. It will take about 2 to 3 days for your eyes to restore their normal vision, and then be enhanced further. At the same time, your visual prowess will also increase significantly." Shursui nodded, then got off the operation table, bowed towards Kuroto, and said sincerely, "Kuroto-san, thank you for everything that you have done for me. If not for your help, I would have been blind with probably no solution at hand." Kuroto waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about it. You are a member of the organization, so obviously, there are some special benefits. And I am just doing what's important for the village and the organization, nothing more." Shursui said again, "Even so, I am grateful." Kuroto smiled and didn't say anything more. He just proceeded to take a sample of Shursui's cells in order to study the changes in Shursui's cell and DNA structure. In this transplantation operation of Shursui, Kuroto also gained a lot of things. In addition to the obvious increase in the visual prowess of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan under the nurturing of the Hashirama cells, Kuroto also gained experience in transplanting Hashirama cells into a living person's body. This experience is very useful and will definitely come in handy in the future while Kuroto plays around with the Hashirama cells, especially when he creates the Yang nature clone. Therefore, it is Kuroto who should be grateful to Shursui for willingly allowing Kuroto to experiment on his body, not the other way around. But even if Shursui had known Kuroto's thoughts, he would have been grateful to Kuroto either way.